Hello everyone, new video. Same disclaimer, nothing meant for legal purposes, talking about the past, history, experience. One of most people's favorite topic is conditioning. I was asked to talk about some keys to conditioning. Again, sometimes this stuff is repetitive, but there's always something else in there that you can pick from or learn from or get some more information or agree with, disagree, have your own opinion. Always feel free to comment. Even if you don't agree with me, that's okay. We're men, we can handle it, we can deal with it. It's not a big deal. We don't always have to agree. But these are some of the things that were important to me, and I tried to be consistent with my keep, and I tried to be consistent with everything involved with it. Of course, the first thing you had to have in the past was a good dog, or what you consider a good dog. It may not be the best, it may not be able to do everything 100%, but you want to try and cover all the bases you can of what you think is important in competition, along with the attitude of the dog, the work ethic, style, whatever you want to structure, whatever you want to include in your decision to use an individual in competition. Again, all this can be used in today's time with legal sports and hunting. So to begin with, for me, it was the prep work. First thing, like I said, is having a good dog, what you consider a good dog. Then you have to decide, what weight do you think that dog is best at? That should all been predetermined. And you do that. For me, I did that throughout the dog's life. So at some point, they made the grade. I knew beforehand, before I even thought about putting their weight out or even thought about the dog, is he going to make the grade or not? I knew what weight they would probably be best at. Sometimes, even with that information, they don't work out. So you just move on. But once you determine their weight, and also predetermine what weight you want to begin the keep, what weight you want them at to begin the keep. Mine, I liked them a couple of pounds over their weight. If they were a smaller dog, maybe 50 plus pounds or more, 3 or 4 pounds over their weight. And then I determine within that, just as an average, how much weight per week they're going to lose on an average. So if I'm 2 pounds over, 8-week keep, I'm going to average half a pound a week, and then have them come either right on weight or close to it. Even if I was under, misjudged the weight, or I felt they were better at a lower weight, that's what I'm going to bring them in at. Maybe it's a quarter pound under, half a pound, up to a pound under. I've done. That's where they felt the best at. Because I didn't believe adding the extra weight was going to help him. Let's say I say he's a 38-pound dog. He comes in at 37. I'm not going to try and this is just me personally, I'm not going to try to put the extra pound on him, because now they're carrying the extra pound themselves, and that includes them having, not only are they pushing an extra pound of their opponent, but they're carrying an extra pound of extra weight that they don't need. So I would much rather, if I missed it, I'd much rather have them go 37 than at 38. Again, that's just me. Other people have other opinions. Most of the time I was pretty close to it, what I considered their best weight. And a lot of times I was right on weight. You make it dead on. And I knew that about a week out, what they were going to weigh, almost to the T on show day. So I knew, for example, if they were going to be right on weight, if they were going to be a quarter under or half a pound under. And I just dealt with it, right? So with that, once you determine their weight, a lot of people do a pre-keep. Like I said, my pre-keep was their whole life before that. But some people do a pre-keep. You want to find out any if they're, you know, how they work and what weight they feel best at, and get them into that working mode, getting loosened up and warmed up, and that routine of working every day, every 2-3 days, whatever your keep determine how many days a week you're going to work, right? So I never really did that, because like I said, that was all done way before, even before their schooling, even during their schooling, even after their schooling. Any pad problems, any work ethic problems, what they're going to do, what kind of keep I'm going to use, how they're going to do it. And like I mentioned before, I taught my dogs my keep, so it wasn't a problem. They all basically did the same thing. There were certain variations, like in the length of the keep. Sometimes it was 4 weeks, a couple of times, not sometimes, but a few times, few times it was 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks. Most of the time it were 8 weeks for me. Some people do 12 weeks. And generally the 12 weeks is they have a month pre-keep and then 8-week full keep after that. So in that prep time though, before I even start working them, I got their feed down, how much I'm gonna feed per volume, because I measured in, you know, cups and teaspoons. You can do by weight, ounces. You can do by, you know, even by, some people use a measuring can or something, you know, and they put so much in, and then when the can or whatever is filled up, or it's filled up to a certain amount of that can or jar or pot or whatever it is, then they know how much they're going to feed their dog. But even within that, they're not just throwing in there and guessing. They have a certain amount they're going to feed. Could be 2 cups of kibble and a half a pound of meat and a certain amount of you know, greens and vegetables and whatever else you're putting in there. It has to be consistent. And then you can increase or decrease depending, you know, you would decrease if the dog's not coming down in weight properly. You increase if he's coming down in weight too much, or towards the hardest part of the keep, a lot of times people will increase the food because you're doing more work, it's more stress, they're burning more calories per day. So the increase just comes automatically at a certain point in their keep, and they do it that way. Some people, like me, if I did that, since I fed kibble too, a high-grade kibble, I just adjusted the kibble because it has basically everything else that I'm adding to it, it's in the kibble, or everything I'm adding to it, everything that's in the kibble is in the food I'm giving them too. Protein, fat, carbs, vitamin, minerals. So I just adjusted the kibble if I needed to. Some people adjust everything. They adjust the kibble, the meat, the vegetables, like that. Some people just adjust the meat and fat, the protein and fat. Just depends. It all takes practice. Everybody has their own methods, but you got to have it predetermined before you even start how much you're going to increase. Like for me, if they were coming down too fast, too much, or I felt that they were a little bit weak, not as springy in their step, sometimes that's a nutrition, meaning they need more calories. And so I would increase maybe half a cup, just as standard. For the big dog, maybe 3/4 of a cup, and just see how they do on that. Some people, let's say you start off feeding half a pound of meat and fat, and you increase it to 3/4 of a pound, or even go all the way up to a pound. Along with that feed, once you got your feed worked out, and most of the time when I fed, that's what I fed the whole keep. So once I started the keep, and even before I started to keep, I would give these extra food, right? But it was a certain amount. Once the feed starts and I'm doing the work, or if I started the food a little bit early or right at the beginning, the weight might come up a little bit because they're not doing hard work. You've increased their feed, they have more calories that they're not burning off, and that's okay. So you feed the same amount. And then after a few days, you'll see the weight level off, come down a little bit under, and I'm talking ounces a day. It's not that much. And you see that over a period of time. So it's important to weigh them. For me, I weighed them after they emptied out. Before I started the work, I weighed them, and then after the workout. So I know what the mark is before the work starts, and I know by weighing them afterwards how much they lost during that workout. So that's going to be, they're going to burn some calories, they're going to empty out some fluids, whether it's through spit, not really sweat, but it's mostly the burning of the calories. But I want to do that after they're empty, so I don't have to include how much urine and how much feces, stool they have in them to adjust that weight. So I want them completely empty. I'm going to put them on the scale, weigh them up, and then I'm going to put them on the scale afterwards. If you see a high fluctuation from day to day, let's say if they from one day to the next, they lost a half a pound after they were empty and after the workout, right? For me, that's too much. So I might have to increase the feed a little bit. If you do it, you only weigh them. You weigh them before they empty out, and then you weigh them after the workout. Then you have to take into account that urine and stool that they emptied out. You have to take that into account in the total weight loss during that day. So that's why I didn't weigh them till after they were empty. That means they're going to go out, they're going to piss and dump and all that. Some people weigh that. You can eyeball it. A good long piss or a couple of pisses is going to be a cup, which is 8 ounces. It's half a pound. And then the stool is the same thing, 1/4 pound to half a pound, around that depending on, again, how much they emptied out. Some, if they go to the bathroom a lot, it could be a pound. I don't know. Mine never emptied out because my stools were small and tight. And they may have emptied out in the morning, right? But always on time, on the clockwork, the dog would piss and dump when I took them for the walkout to empty them out before I started the workout. That was standard. They had to do that. If they're not doing that for me, I have a problem, because I expect them to do that before the show. When I take them out to empty out before the show, they're going to piss everything out. They're going to dump everything out. I know they're totally empty and they're good to go. I really never had a problem with that. I never had to stick anything in them to get them to empty out or dump, right? Because I kept them on that schedule around that same time, because sometimes the time you start the show fluctuates. But after this time, let's say I take them out every day to empty out at 5:45 because the workout starts at 6 o'clock. Around that time, they should be emptied out, and that worked all the way up to the show, even if I had to travel. Around that same time, they're ready to empty out, and they'll actually hold it a lot of times until that time in their head comes around, because they know it's time to empty, and they'll wait until you take them out. So I never really had them dumping, pissing, and shitting in their kennel or crate or whatever, right? Because they knew I was going to walk them out at some point to empty out. So you have the weight determined beforehand. You have the feed and supplements determined beforehand. And also the prep before that is, before you start a keep, for me was have them dewormed, deloused, meaning I don't want any ticks or fleas on them, no bugs, no nothing. And they're dewormed. I would do that about 10 days out. Same thing with the delousing, because I'm going to have them put up, kept away, in an area that's clean, doesn't have any parasites in it, no bugs, no snakes, no animals, no crap, no nothing, no birds shitting around, no nothing. Sometimes it was outside in a secluded area, other times it was inside in the house. So, and some people, and I did that about 10 days out. before the keep starts. And then some people will give antibiotics. I did that a couple of times, but I really didn't see need for it. Some people do it as a general rule. And the same thing, they 10 days out and then maybe 3 days before you start the keep. I don't know the effects of antibiotics as far as conditioning. I didn't do a lot of research on it beforehand because I never really did it, but some people, it was standard with them to do that. And then you have to determine what type of, which should also be predetermined, what's your conditioning program, including the length of the keep. I've done 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. Well, what's the difference between 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks? I'll just use, 8 weeks. Some people I said do up to 12 weeks, but mine were generally, the longest were 8 weeks. Most of them were 8 weeks. I've done 4-week keeps. I've done 6-week keeps. The difference is, for me, it was just one small difference. So with the 8-week keep, I'm going to start at a certain distance, right? Maybe it's a couple of miles running. That's how it starts, right? That's my road work. And I'm going to build it up to there, up to 8 to 10 miles. With a 4-week keep, because my dog, like I said, were always regular exercise. They were always down in weight, especially the ones I was using for competition. So all I did was increase the distance, increase the work earlier on, because it's only a 4-week keep. So in an 8-week keep, if I started a 2-week run, in a 4-week keep, I'm going to start at 5 miles. Because most of my dogs could do 5 miles, no problem. So I'm going to start them at 5 miles, which I'm increasing the work right at the beginning. And then I can increase within a couple of weeks up to that 8-mile mark. And then do some strength work, peak them out the last day. So it's really only 3 weeks of work, really. But again, that idea comes, some people, and I didn't use steroids, so I didn't need that, whatever time they need to use them. I don't know if you can use them that quick, maybe you can, but I didn't use them, so I didn't worry about it. So it was all natural, and I could adjust it. 6 weeks, same thing. So if I'm doing 6 weeks, I could start off at let's say 3.5 miles or 4 miles. I'm going to increase like that. So I'm getting 5 weeks of work. Now 3 weeks of work don't seem like much, but like I said, if my dogs, if we could take them off the chain and go a half hour, 45 minutes, hour and a half like that off the chain, then 3 weeks of work, it's actually a good amount of work, right? And you have to have the right dog. It has to be a dog that likes to work hard. For me, I did those with more of the real barnstorming type, aggressive type, hard worker type. So I could do hard work in a short period of time, get them in shape, have them on weight, point them out. A lot of people will disagree, but I've done dogs, especially early on when I didn't really have a keep, this and that. I've done dogs where I just put 10 days of work on them, 2 weeks of work on them like that. And the longest I went with one of those was 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I won. Another one went 1 hour 50 minutes, I lost. Another one was like a swimming keep. I only did maybe 4 miles hand walking and got her up to 20 minutes swimming. That was it, over a 2-week period. She won in 20 minutes. So these were not top dogs. They were not top opponents, but it was competition. Some of them were good fights, some of them weren't so good. But it taught me about paying attention to the dog, seeing how they work, seeing the effects of the work, seeing how much rest they needed. It was all a learning process. So once you determine the length of your keep and you have them prepped, where you have the food set, you deworm them, delouse them, antibiotics, whatever you're doing, have a place where you're going to keep them for that conditioning program. And once you have the conditioning program set up, what are you going to do? What does the dog do? How do you set your keep up? You have the program set, even the time to empty out, the time your workout is going to begin and end, and you know, what type of work are you doing. Then you figure out which days basically are you going to work them, how many days a week, and how many days are you going to give a rest. Most of them I had one day off a week, which was the Friday before the show, which was Fridays, which Friday was the day before the show. And that's how I like to do it. I wanted them rested, and then the next day was the show. So again, during the keep, I wanted them rested on Friday, and then Saturday, I'm going to continue with the workouts, and that's going to be a hard work day because they've had one day previous. Some people say it's not enough, and in some cases it's not. And in some cases, I had to give them an extra day. But if you have a dog where you work them hard but not too hard, and when you put them up even on their work days, they're resting. They're not moving around, they're not jumping around chasing anything, they're not doing all this crazy stuff where they're burning out, they're just resting. The dog gets into that program. So he's not wasting a lot of energy during the day and at night after you put him up, where they're restless or they're being outside influence or bothering them. None of that. They're just resting. They're quiet, laid back, kicked back. So it's several hours at night and during the previous day that they are resting. And then you're going to do the work. And the work at the peak of my keep was only about 3 hours, and that included emptying them out, doing the work, cooling them off, giving them a rub down, putting them up, and feeding them. Total was 3 hours. That's during the end, towards the end of the keep. In the beginning of the keep, if I'm just starting a couple of miles off first day, that takes, let's say it's 8 miles an hour, right? 2 miles is 15 minutes or something. That's all the work is that previous day. Where problems start is when you start increasing that work and they don't have enough rest, and they don't have enough feed, and they're not settled down, and they're not prepared, and they're not rested from one day to the next, right? That's why for me the work has to be incremental. And even if you blast them out for 2 miles, it doesn't take that long. Even if it takes you 10 minutes, that's all the workout is. So you get up to 5, 6, 7 miles, 8 miles, 9 miles. So if you're working them at 8 miles an hour, that only takes an hour. That's only an hour of work. 10 miles an hour, is hour 15 minutes, right? So, and the strength work took longer because it's a slower pace. Even though the distance for my strength work was half the distance of the road work, it still took longer because we're on foot. We're basically walking. So that's where that increase, not only in the stress of the work I was doing, but the time that it took to do it, that's where it becomes more. And that's where you get the increase up to 2 hours and 3 hours, right? So once you have all that figured out, especially what time your work is going to begin. So let's say you start at 6 o'clock or whatever time it is. A couple hours before, I'm going to give them a slurry that I give, and all it was aminos and carbs. That's it, basically. And one other ingredient that I don't share, but that's for me. Maybe one day I will. All right, but that was the slurry. 1 cup of food, 1 cup of liquid, water. So mix it up, have them drink it, a couple hours out. I've even done it half hour out before emptying. Because they're gonna, if you give them a liquid, whatever that weighs, most of it, because it's liquid, they're just gonna piss it out. They're gonna absorb it right away because it's liquid, and when you take them out to walk them out, they're gonna piss it out, whatever it was. So if you give them, again, if you're giving them a cup of liquid, let's say you just give them a cup of electrolytes or something, a cup of chicken broth, non-fat chicken broth, just clean broth, right? And I only did that to make sure that they had some extra hydration in them. And it's not really they're retaining the fluid, but they're retaining the ingredients of the fluid. In that case, it's a little bit of protein It's electrolytes in the case of chicken broth or beef broth. So they're absorbing that. So they have a little bit of extra protein in them. They have a little bit of electrolytes. They have a little tiny bit of carbs, some minerals, vitamins in them. And then the waste, the liquid, they're going to piss it out. So, and you can adjust that. You can determine that by the dog's weight. So I did that a couple hours before I emptied them out. So you have to have a time determined when you're going to empty them out, which was about 15 minutes prior. And some do it way earlier. Some do it an hour before, 2 hours. Their dog's empty. That's fine. But mine, like I said, I like to keep it on time. They're used to going out, empty them out, go do their work. During the conditioning, it's the workout. During the show, it's the show itself. So all on time. And if you're on a multiple card show like I was several times, you're just estimating the time. But in my case, even though it was an estimated time, the way I looked at it, let's say my show determined how many were on the card was around 6 o'clock. So that means by 5:45, I'm going to empty them out. But let's say it don't start at 6 o'clock. Let's say because of the time of the show, it starts at 6 or at 6:30 or 7 or 7:30 even. In my mind, when they emptied out, they're ready. So from that point forward, even though they're not going to go till 7 o'clock, if they're empty by 5:45, then they're good to go regardless of what time that show starts. I'm not going to add anything to them. I'm not going to give them extra this or extra that to make up for the timing is off. Because in my mind, the dog is ready at this point. He's ready at 6 o'clock. So if he's ready at 6 o'clock, he's ready at 7 o'clock too. So that mindset is just him waiting for that time. Now, if a dog, let's say he's raring to go at 6 o'clock, if you don't settle him down, yeah, he's going to burn that peak and he's going to burn those calories because he's not settled down. He's amped up, he's moving around, he's jumping and hollering and all this stuff. They'll do that even in a kennel. So sometimes you have to put them in that sky kennel, cover it up, put them in places quiet, whether it's your vehicle or the motel room or whatever it is, and just have them settle down. That's one thing that you don't want to mess with. Their quiet time before the show. That's where sometimes energy is lost, the peak is off a little bit, and the dog's nervousness and his being amped up, it can drain him somewhat. So that's why it's very important. Don't have a lot of people around them, and you don't have people walking by and getting them restless and standing up, sitting down, standing up, sitting down, laying down, getting up, looking around, trying to see through and all that. Be quiet. If you have to go do something and be involved, that's where your second or your help or my son or my partner, whoever it was, comes in handy. They stay with the dog, keep quiet, don't talk to them. Just relax. Even if we got to turn the lights off and no music, have a fan going, whatever it is. If he's used to TV, you put the TV on, he relaxes with the TV on, do that. So that's what I mean about being settled down. You have to create as normal an environment as he's used to, and as settled down and no distraction environment that he's used to already. You don't want to deviate from that, change that. So once you determine what time you're going to empty them, what type of workout you're going to use, what time the workout starts, and what time it begins, then you stick to that program. You determine which are his work days, rest days. The only deviation from that is if he needs more rest, you give him more rest. Let's say you think, well, this dog can do more work, and instead of this being his rest day, I'm going to work him that day. That's one thing I wouldn't advise. Even if you think this is a rest day, but I want to work him, don't do that, because that could hurt him. But giving him that rest day, even though you don't think he needs it, that's not going to hurt him. That's just going to give him more rest, more time for his muscles to build up, more time for him to get over any soreness or pain that he might have. So I wouldn't advise that. It's all, in my mind, it's okay to give him more rest than you think he needs than it is to give him more work that you think he can do. So once you've done that, and what you want to do is monitor everything. You want to monitor all these times that I'm talking about, when you're going to empty them out, when does the show start, when does the conditioning start, the workout, how long the workout's going to take, what type of work you're going to do. You want to pay attention to everything. You want to monitor all those time frames, write everything down. But you also want to monitor when he's working, and even when he's resting, his breathing and heart rate. So if he's resting, he should be resting. His heart rate should be the same, just normal. His breathing should be the same. And sometimes you'll notice that, okay, your dog's put up, and you go there and he's not breathing normal. He's breathing a little heavier than he normally would, just resting. That could mean, well, you were not in the room with him, or you're not around, that he got excited. He got up and he was jumping around, moving around. And he heard you coming back, and then he settles down because he knows you don't want him doing that. So he'll settle down and lay down, but he's breathing a little heavy. That tells you that he was jumping around when you weren't there. So not only does the dog have to be able to rest when you're not there, he's got to be able to rest when you were there, because sometimes when you're there, they'll be more excited and they want to get out and they want to be with you. So you have to go through that process beforehand of having them settle down while you're there, just like you want him to settle down when you're not there. When it's nice and quiet and he's alone. Some dogs won't do that. Because you're in the room or because you're there, he's up and trying to move around and excited. He wants to be with you and he's wagging his tail and scratching and doing all this stuff. You have to get him to settle down. The only way to do that is to do these actions that I'm talking about repeatedly over and over. And it may take a while for him to learn, settle down while I'm in the room. Or if there's people walking around, settle down while these people are walking around. And you can do that because you never know where you're going to be at. Maybe you got to put the dog up. Let's say you're even at a weight pull show. So you got all these people around, all these dogs around, all this noise, all this barking, kids playing, running around, speakers going, the announcers talking, banging around, all this noise, cars coming and going, and all this stuff. You have to get your dog to be able to settle down while all this outside distractions are going on. And you can do that. You can actually expose the dog to those way beforehand. Have him to the point where he does settle down when you're around or when there's people around or all these noises around. So he doesn't get up and try and get out and chew the kennel and wag his tail, beat his tail, and jump and push on the kennel or chew or whatever he's doing. Some dogs you can't travel with because of that. They don't settle down. I had that happen one time. It was a hard lesson for me to learn, but I learned it. And dogs that you can travel with, that's what they learn to do. They learn to settle down. During the ride, they're not standing up in the kennel. They're relaxed, laying down. You go here and you go there, up the mountains, down the mountains, in town, out of town, at night, during the day, different weather, air conditioning on, cooler on, heater on in the car, all this stuff that you have to pre-teach your dog or pre-expose your dog to know where he's at. Can I travel with this dog? Traveling could be even just a half hour away. Well, if he's restless for that half hour, again, he's burning his energy. He's burning calories. It's going to affect his weight. It's going to affect his performance. He's burning his peak out beforehand. So that's why I always talk about getting these dogs used to outside influences, right? And I've talked to people that had my blood or had my dogs, and some of them were not good for traveling, some of them were, and the ones that were said, yeah, they just act normal. Doesn't matter who's around, they're not shy, not timid, they're not scared. They just go along with the program. That's the kind of dogs you want. And I would say if most of your dogs are that way, then you've done a good job, and that's the type of dogs you want. It can be comfortable in any situation, almost any situation. with distractions around. I learned that from old game file guy, right? Two examples. One was they had to have the birds in an area where there were a lot of people, a lot of noise. One guy's birds were not used to it. They flew around and they broke their feathers off and they were jumping and just unsettled, right? The other guy, his birds were cool. They were calm, nothing. So his buddy came up to him. He goes, you don't mind all this noise, and you don't mind, all these people and music and hollering and noises and all this stuff. He goes, nah, my birds are used to it. That's where I got that from. That's what he said. Nah, they're used to all this noise. They're used to all this disruption and all that. It didn't bother him one bit. His birds were relaxed and settled down. No problem. That's what I'm talking about. Getting your dogs used to that. Where all this noise and distraction means nothing to them because they're used to it. They don't react to it because it's something normal that happens all the time, and it's no big deal. That's the whole point to it. Also, is your dog eager to work? When it's time to work, they start getting restless when it's time to work, especially if they've done it before. But even after a week or two, they start getting restless, meaning they have a clock in their head telling them it's going to be time to empty out, then I'm going to go do my conditioning, my workout, and all that. And they know it. So they're eager to do it. And they have a good work ethic, right? They're eager to work. They get out there and do their hard as they can, or they do the pace you want them, or their own pace, or whatever it is. They're eager to work. So any deviations from that tells you something's wrong. If he's not eager to work that day, if he's not coming out of his doghouse or wherever you have him, kennel, and raring to go and excited and fun and tail wagging and jumping around or whatever it is, just you watch the behavior of the dog. Then maybe he needs another day rest. Just put him up. And I've even got where the dog, they were acting okay. Yeah, he seemed like he's good to go, and take him out there and he's not working the same. He's kind of listless and he's not really paying attention. He's not focused on his job, this and that. I just pick him up. And I mean pick him up. Not walk him back home. Pick him up and carry him back home and just put him up. I could be a quarter mile down the road or half a mile down the road. I don't like the way he's working. I'm not walking him back. I'm picking him up because he's going to get all the rest he can. So imagine that, me walking down the dirt road going back home with the dog in my arms. Why not let him walk? Because I don't want him spending any more energy. From now on, he's resting this day. From this day to the next day, he's resting. It's an extra day of rest. I'm giving it to him. And to me, rest means rest. So I went as far as that to do that. I didn't just walk him home. I pick him up. Okay, you're tired. Okay, you got a joint problem, or you got a stiff muscle, or pull muscle, whatever it is. Even if it's a pad problem, if they tore their pad, which I only had that happen one time, believe it or not, where I had a pad issue. It wasn't that bad. I still picked him up. It was just a little cut on the large part of their pad. And he was walking kind of funny. I noticed it. And I checked his pad, had a little tear. So rather than just walk him home and being careful where he's walking so he doesn't tear it anymore, I just picked him up and carried him home. Put him up for the day. Cleaned it off, put some stuff on it. Next day, it's good to go. Because I usually worked him on dirt roads where the dirt is real soft. So it wasn't, it tore because of that. I don't know why it tore a little bit. But either way, I took care of the problem. So again, you're watching, and even during the workout, you're watching their breathing, you're watching their heart. When I say heart rate, now people, they can put heart monitors on them. They can actually check the beats per minute and all that stuff. I just watched them. I just looked at it. You can see their heart beating through their chest on the side or in front. You can see their heart, like that. You can see if it's racing, going real fast, or if it's settled down. That, along with the breathing, that's how I can tell how long it takes to recuperate on the fly as we're doing the workout, or during the cool down after the workout. I could tell how long it took them to get their breathing and their heart rate back to almost normal. You can time that, and all this stuff should be written down. You don't have to have a pad there to write it down. Okay, whatever. You can remember that during the workout. Okay, he blew out in 15 minutes. And then as you progress with your workouts, right? Oh, now it's taking him 30 minutes before he starts breathing heavy. Good. And then, in the beginning, it took him 5 minutes to get his heart back to normal. And then later on in keep, when you're doing harder work, oh, now it's only taking him 2 minutes or 1 minute. And his breathing's back to normal. So that is something you can do, and you can use monitors if you want. And the last thing is, how do you peak your dog out? Some people start peaking their dog out as early as 2 weeks out, some a week and a half. Me, it was a week. And all I did, like I've said before, is I just cut starting Saturday, the week before the show, since Saturday is the work day, that was their hardest workout. Then Sunday, I cut that work in half. Then Monday, I cut that work in half. And Tuesday, I cut that work in half. And Wednesday, I either cut that work in half, or that's when I started giving no days work. So sometimes, depending on the dog, how they worked, meaning a harder barnstorming type that works real hard, I rested them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. One that wasn't that way, not as hard a worker, I could rest them Thursday and Friday, and then the show's on Saturday. So once I cut that work down in half, that's what begins the peak. Because they're not doing as much work as they want. They want to do more work. They got all this reserved energy, but I'm not giving them to them, so they're storing it. That helps them peak. Also, what helps them peak is during all this time, as you're bringing it down, the dog is emptying out, getting rid of extra fluids. The last 2 or 3 days, that's where they're coming up to peak, even though they're relaxing, their whatever extra weight, water, whatever, because you're not doing that work with them, they're pissing it out. And that's what it helped me, where they went to the bathroom the same time every day. They're going to hold it till they're all empty. And because they're holding it during the day, waiting for that time for you to go empty out, when they do empty out, they're going to empty out everything. That's the drying out process. That's the way I looked at it. That's the way it worked for me. You tell by checking the skin. You tell by how much they're emptying out, the color of it, what it looks like, the firmness of the stool, the clearness of the urine. And then Thursday and Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's all I'm doing, is I'm doing the walkout to empty them out. And they're mentally prepared for doing this work that they're not getting, but they know at some point they're going to get. On Saturday, same thing, last empty out, on time, and the show. So these are some of the keys of conditioning that I think are most important. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for your support. Please send your comments, any of my stuff you want to purchase. Hit me up on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, my email, richardjschoolboy60@gmail.com, or on Instagram. Once again, thank you very much. Your support is greatly appreciated.